I think, we can learn from like those people in the blue zones. They're the people who live the longest in the world, and they're in five different areas across the world, yet, and so they all eat different foods. But what they do have in common is that social connection is a massive part of all of their lifestyles. So it's very much, um, meeting with their friend, walking to the shop, sitting in groups, meeting with their family, eating meals together. So there's a lot of that social connection. I think it plays a big part in terms of happiness and longevity. And certainly, in the workplace, like, if you've got good relationships at work, you're probably happy to go to work. You're keen to
Mm.
go to work. You want to see your work colleagues. You get on well with them, that sort of thing.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Mapper Forward's workshop. It's time to become a coffee consultant. Learn how to diversify your revenue streams and create freedom from your day job while saying goodbye to that alarm clock forever by becoming a consultant within the coffee industry or directly to consumers who have shifted towards home brewing and home roasting. Protect your income from challenging times in the coffee value chain by taking this course today. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is sadly the last episode of a 5-part series with Nicole Dynan, dietitian extraordinaire, who is helping us understand the role of wellbeing in the workplace, in the coffee industry, nutrition, all of the good stuff. And in this last episode of the series, we're going to be talking about the role that coffee plays in community. Nicole, I have a lot of I think about this a lot. I think about the role that coffee plays um, at origin, where coffee is grown, and how coffee is harvested and processed, and the role that community plays in that side of things around coffee. I also think a lot about the role that coffee plays as a community builder within our industry
Mhm.
and the role that coffee plays in the community as a community builder. Because the cafe itself, or coffee as a drink, is what people really do commune around based on different cultures, obviously. But whether we're drinking coffee in Ethiopia, or in Yemen, where coffee was born, and here in the Middle East, coffee is an integral part of the culture for millennia.
I agree.
What role do you see that coffee plays as a community builder? Because for us, it's pretty in the industry, it's pretty obvious to us that people commune around coffee. What are your thoughts on it though?
Like you, I have a lot of thoughts on this because I feel it's so fundamental to
Mm,
so many of our lives. So I have that perspective that, it's something that takes time to drink. It gives people that opportunity to share stories, with friends and colleagues. People connect over story. Um, and so it's such a foundational part of building relationships, I think, in our society. I think we said in one of the earlier episodes, people say, let's meet for a coffee, like it's
mm,
all about connection. So I definitely have that perspective on it. And then, from more of a workplace perspective, I just have that feeling. It really creates a bit of an ecosystem within, like, say, even the CBD. So it's like small coffee vendors in the CBD rely on big corporates bringing their staff back into the office so
mm,
that then, it keeps them alive as coffee vendors. And then big corporates rely on the little coffee vendor because everyone loves going out for a coffee, and
mm.
it's their place to share that story. So I think it shows that we all are so interconnected and reliant on coffee as a social connector.
Mm. Just as an aside there, folks, CBD in Australian is like
Oh,
downtown. So
yeah.
central business
Central
district. So
business
like
district.
the financial district or the downtown area. But it is in Australia and in many cities around the world. People Coffee businesses are used as a social lubricant
Mhm.
in a lot of societies during the day, during the workplace day. You know, you shouldn't be going out and drinking alcohol while you are at work. So people go to cafes and drink coffee as a way to either connect or to meet other people or have meetings or whatever it is. And that's how people are finding their ways to build community during the day. They go to
Mm.
bars or restaurants or whatever in the evening. But the cafe seems to be a way that people are building community during the day. I tell people a lot that in Australia, you know, children are from when they're one, they're taught to drink baby chinos. It's a part of the way that we help our whole society become interconnected. The laptop is not really welcome in cafes in Australia, right?
Yeah, correct.
We don't give out the Wi-Fi password in Australia. But in most other societies, that is what happens. In over here, um, it's a very different thing because Dubai is probably different to some of the other Emirates and Middle Eastern countries. But cafes here take the place of the bar.
Right.
So, because alcohol isn't something that is consumed by the Muslim population here, so you go to a cafe at night, and most cafes stay open till 1 a.m. It's filled with local Emiratis.
Mhm.
Why? Because this is where they meet other people, and
Mhm.
this is where they
Mhm.
perhaps, you know, go on a date or meet up with their social circles or those kinds of things. However, in places like America, when I lived there, you would walk into a cafe and there was laptops everywhere. So your cafe was kind of the opposite of what would happen for community. People were going to work alone together so that they
Yes.
didn't
So it's
feel
still,
alone.
yes, so it's
It's
still a sense of
weird.
community, isn't
Yeah.
it? We're all working here independently on our laptops, but it still gives me a sense of community. Yeah.
And I've got some side eye going on there so that I can look at the other person and
Yeah.
I can have a conversation through eye contact. But it
Yeah.
seems to be really important for people as society gets lonelier and lonelier and lonelier. It seems to be the reason that people tend to come together.
100%. And sometimes, for older people, who may like have lost their partner or something, it's a
Mm.
place where they go to actually connect with other people in the day, or actually to see someone outside of the house. So I do think it's such a foundational part of our society. It helps us, have ritual. We go in there for our morning ritual and coffee, set up traditions where we meet with our friends on the weekends, that sort of thing. So I think it's really a great, great thing for collaboration and connection.
I I don't know if you've ever seen how coffee gets harvested in Ethiopia. Have you ever seen any of that in Africa?
No.
It is beautiful because they're singing around it. It's a very kind of community oriented. It's same thing in Central America. A lot of it gets done that way where the pickers work together. And it's this beautiful kind of connectedness that happens as the harvest goes on, where people are picking in tandem. Um, let's not talk about all the other socially dysfunctional things that happen with pay rates and all that kind of thing. But what you do hear from a lot of pickers is that there's a community element of it that's very important to their way of life.
Yeah.
What I'm starting to realize is actually, this is a question. For somebody like me, where I work on my own and I don't have I'm not married, I don't have kids. Um, what's the difference between somebody like who doesn't have that connectedness in their everyday life, in the way that they work, et cetera, versus people who work in communities? Like, I feel very happy and fulfilled, but I definitely see a difference between other people like me
Mm.
and people who work in communities like that. There's a difference in the richness of the life that they live. Am I seeing that
Yeah.
weirdly?
Well, I think, we can learn from like those people in the blue zones. They're the people who live the longest in the world, and they're in five different areas across the world, yet, and so they all eat different foods. But what they do have in common is that social connection is a massive part of all of their lifestyles. So it's very much, um, meeting with their friend, walking to the shop, sitting in groups, meeting with their family, eating meals together. So there's a lot of that social connection. I think it plays a big part in terms of happiness and longevity. And certainly, in the workplace, like, if you've got good relationships at work, you're probably happy to go to work. You're keen to
Mm.
go to work. You want to see your work colleagues. You get on well with them, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think that connection piece. There's a lot in that, which I'm sure there's been lots of studies on as well. Um, to say that it probably does have some influence on, that level of happiness and longevity.
And I guess my final question there is, and it might take a second to unpack this. When you talk about happiness and going to work and people feeling community in the workplace and feeling satisfied, the other side of that coin is when people feel stressed about their work because they either don't fit in the workplace, they're not getting paid well, or a number of other reasons. If we tie that back to nutrition and well-being, the role that that level of stress plays on you can sometimes be a downward spiral. A lot of people in the coffee industry experience this. What words do you have for people when it comes to being able to catch themselves, and support themselves through a process as they navigate that from a nutritional perspective and a well-being perspective?
Yeah, so I think as we've sort of talked about through all these episodes, it's sort of nutrition is one of those things that, sometimes we can grab hold of because we've got a little bit more control over that. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're experiencing something in the workplace that's out of your control, even burnout, they've linked to actually what's happening in the workplace more so than the individual. So there's a lot of things that might be out of your control, but if you can focus a little bit more on your nutrition, we know that some of the best advice these days is to actually increase the diversity of the plants that you're eating in your diet.
Wow.
So not just vegetables, so things like, yes,
Legumes.
vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, seeds, whole grains. Whole grains, a lot of people are cutting out carbs, but whole grains are the actual part of the diet that is most linked to longevity. So we definitely
Really?
want to be making sure we include some whole grains in the diet. So what is a whole grain?
Mm-hmm.
So think about brown rice. It's got the outer layer. Not to say that white rice is not nutritionally beneficial, but the brown rice grain is a whole grain. It's got the whole
Right.
component that hasn't been stripped. So things like that, barley, rye, quinoa, buckwheat, sorghum, teff, some of those other grains as
Wow.
well. So, yeah, so including a wide variety of those so you can support different populations of good bacteria in the gut. So if I'm just eating broccoli
Mm-hmm.
every day as my only vegetable, I support the bacterial species that like broccoli in my gut, but then potentially all the other species in there that like, cauliflower, carrots, corn, whatever, are starving to death because
Right.
I'm just eating broccoli. So if we have more variety, more color in the diet, we're more likely to be able to get those nutrients, those prebiotics in there to support those beneficial bacteria. And then they produce good compounds to help make our gut wall nice and strong, reduce inflammation in the body, help us, you know, avoid chronic disease, hopefully. Of course, as part of that, reduce our risk of mental health and mental health conditions like depression as well, because we're supporting, that reduction in inflammation, which they think is at the heart of even that food mood benefit.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah,
Amazing.
so diversity is key. Yeah. And as I said, I think in one of the other episodes, it doesn't mean you can't eat, uh, you know, meat, chicken, fish, those sorts of things, but we definitely want to have lots of diversity in plants in whatever dietary pattern that you do choose.
This has been such a great series. You're the first dietitian that we've had on the podcast. I hope you'll come back because this has been really enlightening and I have a million more questions still.
Right.
So thank you so much, Nicole. I really appreciate it. Um,
You're welcome, Lee.
where can people find out more about what you're doing?
So I think one place that they could go, they could go to our goodnutritionco.com website. On there, we have a workplace wellbeing checklist,
Mhm.
which is basically helps them look at their workplace and just see, are they sort of looking at some basic factors that could really improve the nutritional adequacy of their workplace,
Mhm.
even a nutrition policy, things like that. So they can get that for free. So the
Mhm.
checklist. And then I would say, if something has resonated with them today, definitely reach out, get hold of an accredited practicing dietitian or a registered dietitian in your area, and book yourself a one-on-one consultation, because even as dietitians, we love talking to other dietitians. We can all pick up something that may benefit our health and well-being in the long term.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this series. Would you sign us off for this series?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. So
My
peace, love,
pleasure.
and peanut butter.
Have an amazing rest of your day, everyone. And don't forget to
Thanks,
check the show
everyone.
notes. Bye. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.